I'm going to take you back to the year 2000. So think of the turn of the century. The world was a very different place. I'm not even sure if the internet fully existed. I remember using it a lot in college. I was in college at the time. But it was like really limited online access. We probably were on chat rooms, AOL Messenger, some email systems. Of course, there's like LexisNexis, but not really robust to where we are right now. So during that year, I was the editor-in-chief of my school paper. And, it might seem small right now, but it was a really big deal back then because our paper was excellent. There was many articles that we would publish, and as the EIC editor-in-chief, we had the obligation to publish an op-ed or an opinion column about once a week or at least once a month. But I just never did. I don't know what kept me away from it. I couldn't ever get the courage to do it. So then one night toward the end of the semester, I remember we were getting close to graduation and it was finals time. An incident happened where my friend had a gay slur thrown at him in a very big way. And it angered me so much because it wasn't just that, it was a series of events that had happened on campus that it drove me to write an op-ed and to publish it. And I remember my best friend at the time even said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" He still actually tells me that he did that for me. But and I said yes. And of course, there's a fire truck going by right now. So they got published. So the thing you might need to know too about me at that time is that I also wore a hijab. So when you publish an op-ed, you have your headshot, and it was me wearing hijab, talking about how the campus would never be a school of any kind of prestige because they didn't know how to treat their minorities. And I pivoted all of this on the gay bashing incident. So, this is pre 9/11. I would like to say, and maybe this is maybe just a little bit too rash, but this is pre-Muslim turn, change, interfaithy things that have happened post 9/11. My mom was furious when she found out, but I didn't tell her. The community found out first because, of course, we lived in a college town and our friends were professors or students. And they told my mom, and they would, she actually stopped talking to me because she was so furious. But that's not the cancel part. The part that really got to me was how the Muslim community started talking about me. It was the oddest thing to have people tell you, "Oh, they're talking about you on chat rooms and asking what can we do to save this sister and how can I help her because she's because I was not homophobic. I was working as an ally," and they couldn't stand that. And they were like, and they actually even cited that, how do we prevent her from going to hell? So I guess when hell is one of the outcomes, I can see why people really felt like they had to correct me. And it did lead to a little bit of cancellation in that I was I was blocked from different things or running for office, and people, I had that label on it. I think one time my sister said to me, "Well, you're just known as a gay lover." And I said, "Well, that's great. That's exactly what I want to be." That did not help the argument at that time. But one thing that kept going through my mind was this hadith, and it is actually a weak hadith that talked about if you can't come up with 40 excuses for someone, the last excuse should be, "I couldn't come up with enough excuses." My mom had used to pound that into my head when I was a kid. So to me, it stuck. I was like, yes, why are people not doing that for me? I was going to quote the same verse from the Quran that Brother Aleem just did. So I'll pass over that because it's a little bit long. But it was the idea that you shouldn't assume something about someone. But that wasn't given, that care wasn't given to me. I believe on my religion to be a balance of kindness and generosity and tempered by justice. It has a very strong social justice component. But at that time, like I said, if going to hell is the outcome, I can see why it was leaning towards being canceled. I got through it and I am who I am now, and the community has changed, which is fantastic. And if I wrote that op-ed again, I don't think the same reaction would have happened this time. I think my mom would continue to talk to me. But the thing is that as a communications person, I hope this is okay to say, I actually love this. I love cancel culture, calling out culture. But what I mean is because there's so much good and there's so much bad that comes from it. It's interesting to see what ebbs and flows and what spurs people on and what doesn't. I mean, this is not new to human beings. We started with tar and feathering and the Scarlet Letter to McCarthyism. So it's not like this is just a new form of it, the new technology that's being put on it. There's been some good from it. Like, I'm not sure if anybody turned their profile pic black and white. And if you did, then maybe a friend, if they were a good friend, called you to explain why we were really doing it. And it was about the Turkish women who are beginning to be found missing. Not found, but they were missing in Istanbul. But then there's the calling out culture of like Kendall Jenner and the Pepsi commercial, which I think she should be called out for that because it was a really bad misstep and very when a time when our community was facing so much for them to put that out there. Call out culture also boycotts things and lets people maybe make a change. I'm not sure if you remember, but there was a time when Lowe's, the hardware store, had pulled some advertising from a Muslim TV show. So many people boycotted it. And then people eventually went back to it. And then there's the massive calling out, the Chick-fil-A's, the Louis C.K. I couldn't remember the comedian, the actor from Seinfeld, but I know his career is gone too. And then there's just the loss of oneself. I know this is terrible, what happened to Amy Cooper. Did she deserve all of that? For what she did to the dog, that was awful, but she lost her job. She lost a lot. And I do appreciate what Chris Cooper said was that, and he's quoted, he was talking to the fact that she needs to have that extreme honor so she learned from this. But then there's also like Jussie Smollett, who faked a beating, the actor from Empire, and who did lose his way. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if anybody remembers, but back in 2015, there was a gentleman, a veterinarian, who killed a lion, Cecil the lion. And he was like a big game hunter, and it became known, and he did this, I remember, with a bow and arrow. And then he came back into the country. I think it was in Michigan. So at that time, I was working at an organization, and I found out that my colleague had actually called him because his number became public, and she left him a threatening message on his voicemail. I don't know what about that made me feel really bad and terrible. I just felt like that was not the right thing to do. I didn't agree with this man, but it didn't sit well that she called him and left a threatening message on his voicemail. I don't know. It just, to this day, clearly it still bothers me, and it's been 6 years. Cancel culture can be really effective because we've seen that at combating racism, sexism, or any type of abuse or wrongdoing from, I don't know if you guys saw this, but K-pop fans, so K-pop being Korean pop, fans took over the anti-Black White Lives Matter hashtags. It was the power of what they could do was shown right there. Or even just the Me Too movement, or Mute R. Kelly, or Ted Cruz going to Cancun. These were all different things that took place and had good, positive ramifications and outcomes. And I just still don't know how I feel. I know that I listen. I know that I tune in. I don't take an action. Does that make me more correct than my colleague who called in? I'm still wrestling with that. But one thing I know is that 2 days ago, Tiger Woods was in a car accident, and he's extremely hurt. And as soon as I heard that, my friends and I started texting, well, who thinks he was drunk or high? And this is what went through our mind. And we were sad for it because we really wanted him to make that comeback, if you saw the HBO documentary. And I did too. I was trying to root on the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And so then it came out this morning that the accident really was an accident. And I thought to myself, wow, I wonder if that's true or not, because could Tiger Woods handle another cancel like he did before? Did we have to cancel him for the affair he was having, for the back pain he was suffering through from his alcoholism or drug addiction? Does it still make him the greatest of all time? Yes. Will we forgive him and bring him back? But then there's others that we don't. But I don't know. It was just seeing that all we could think of was, I'm so glad it wasn't that. But still leaves me wondering. I just don't know how I feel about it.
We may seem different,